Are you sick and tired of feeling sick and tired? Are you over being so fatigued that you don't have energy for your kids, for your partner, for yourself, for your friends? Are you overwhelmed with everyday life and not sure why? Do you feel like that everybody else seems to be able to cope and handle, but for some reason you can't? Well, to cover these mystery complex cases, I've brought together some of the most brilliant minds in the alternative health space. We'll be talking everything from psychedelics to mental health, mindfulness, spiritual health, physical health. If it has to do with living your best life, I'm going to have a guest on covering that topic. Hey there, I'm Heather Gray, a certified functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner, and I am the Renegade Health Boss. Thank you for joining us, and I hope you will enjoy this show. Yay! Welcome, Dr. John Lieurance, to the show.
Thank you, Heather. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy for you to be here. I had been following you for so long and then got the pleasure of meeting you in person and actually spending some time with you at a breathwork and meditation thing. And then, at your booth at Dave Asprey's event. And you've got quite the way with people. Like before you know it, he's got 3 people around him in a circle. They're all putting their fingers out to get this mysterious stuff. And he tells us to put it on our taint. We're in the middle of a conference. We're sticking our fingers down our pants, indiscreetly as possible. And then silly me gets the stuff wrapped up on my Spanx, which made everything really hot down there. And so now I'm walking around fanning my skirt. But you have a way with people that is just amazing. I just had to laugh of what all we were doing in that group right there. What was it that you were handing out that day? What was it in your pocket?
Root Zen.
Root Zen.
So it's one of the products so it first blush, it sounds really interesting, right? But then the story behind that is I was studying functional neurology, and a doctor who I'd been following, who his focus was with ADH and ADD kids. And he was applying like oils, like peppermint oil and different kind of hot and cold oils on their perineum, and noticing like these major changes in their behavior. And so you could see the kids just kind of like get grounded when they were getting like a peppermint type of an oil. And so I started doing it myself and noticed that there was a real experiential effect when I did this. And I started to do it, while I was doing breath work and meditation. I found that it was kind of connecting things. And then I studied the way that Joe Dispenza was teaching his breath work. And I found this to be a real upgrade to this, pulling the energy from the root chakra up to the pineal and kind of activating that root chakra. And what that does for the vitality of the body is kind of interesting. So then, I started to look at a variety of oils that really have powerful effects to activate acupoint. So like rosemary, eucalyptus, peppermint. We put camphor in there and Douglas fir. And so we kind of created this combination, and it's gotten quite popular, actually. So it's kind of interesting. I was really reluctant because we have a lot of different products, right? And so it was like, should we launch this product, right? Is this something that people are going to be into? And it's fun to share as well. And you can tell a lot from someone when you introduce them to this, whether they do it or not, right? Some people are going to be really leery and they're going to be like, well, no, thank you. And then other people are going to be like all in and like, so it's a way to connect with people. It's a way to kind of see how open and experimental people can be. And
I think Limeys like myself are kind of notorious for being a little bit more open-minded because we've had to try so many weird crap in order to get better over the years, between the MMS enemas and the silver in my veins. And, I could go on and on and on, but that's part of the reason, like I said, I fell in love with your work is you were really doing some kind of out there fringy type stuff, but was really backed in science. And so I know we came out the gates kind of with guns blazing, but let's back up a little bit. Who is
Okay.
Dr. John and how did you get started in all this type of work?
Well, so I guess so. My story is I started out in life with a lot of challenges because I was in utero in my first 2 years of life in Camp Lejeune, which is the worst water contamination thing in history. You'll actually see a lot of commercials on TV with attorneys trying to, because literally the government has just allocated billions of dollars for injuries. My father has cancer, which I'm certain is from that situation. So I always was really sensitive. I got asthma when I was young, and I was hospitalized many times. I wound up going into special education classes. I was very far behind in my schoolwork, and my brain just didn't work the same way that other people did, and I had a lot of behavioral problems, and it was difficult to kind of navigate school for me when I was really young. So it could be because of that toxicity. I mean, there was some of the worst toxins known to man, that are probably still in my nervous system to this day.
What area was that?
It's in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah. So then kind of fast forwarding, I went to chiropractic school first, and then I did a bridge program and became a naturopath. And then I furthered my education to be a chiropractic neurologist. And so right now, our practice is really unlike, I think, any other practice on the planet, just because, I mean, we have a DO who's a psychiatrist. We have a physician assistant who's a podiatrist. We have a couple of nurses. We've got a cardiologist. I have an acupuncturist who's also an MD, and then myself. And so we have this group of these really unusual, talented physicians, and we're doing things that are really not typically done, and we don't take any insurance, which allows us to really kind of just do what we need to do for patients and not worry about what is covered and what's not covered. But yeah, so then fast forwarding kind of back to my story a little bit, is I got really sick in the peak of my career. I was 200. I weigh right now I weigh about 160, 165. And at one time, I same body fat. I was, basically, 10%, 5 or 10% body fat, but I weighed 200 pounds, and I was lifting weight, and I was kite surfing, and I was like in my 30s, and it was like I was indestructible, right? And then I got sick, and literally within a few months, I went down to like 140 something pounds, and I looked like I was in my 60s. And, it was very, very difficult because I was going to all of my friends initially who practiced natural medicine, and, nobody really figured out what was wrong with me. And then I started to go to the medical profession, and they still didn't figure it out. So it wasn't until almost 10 years later of suffering and just basically being like sick and disabled for that long that I finally tested myself for Lyme. And there it was. And so then after that, I discovered I had mold in my house, which is probably the reason that the Lyme had such a way with me, and that I had really high Epstein-Barr titers. And so then that began my journey into fixing myself. And in the process of fixing myself, I've done a lot of things that haven't worked. And I think I figured out, the fastest, most streamlined way for people that have, chronic Lyme and mold illness to recover. And so now we do coaching with patients all over the world. We use a lot of our MitoZen products within those coaching plans, and big fan of methylene blue, which I think we're going to be diving into today. Big fan of melatonin in higher doses. And there's a few things I think we'll have time to dive into that I think are really important for people that will give them some good. So you want to listen to the end, right? Because we're going to be giving you some really good tips and tricks all the way to the end of this recording.
I'm super excited. I had forgotten about that connection. That's right. The Lyme mold. That's, my story as well. 27 years undiagnosed Lyme disease, mold toxicity, cavitations, 3 autoimmune diseases. Um, and that's, like I said, that's another reason why I just like jump into whatever. I'm like, oh, this is supposed to help do something. Sure, no problem.
Mm.
um, but your products, first off, thank you for not putting PEG in your Mitozen, methylene blue stuff. Like that's incredible. And making something that somebody can just swallow instead of having to have, a Smurf blue mouth for the rest of the day. So that's amazing. And it was funny when I brought home my blue eyes, my husband was looking at me like I was insane. He's like, "What are you doing?" And then I have my little red light afterwards. And I have seriously stopped the progression of my eyes going. I was this close to needing readers, and now it's normalized. It's stabilized my eyes, and I absolutely swear by that
Amazing.
stuff. So I'm super excited to jump into our next topics. We're going to take a real quick break. Yes, stay tuned. Don't go anywhere, because when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into the mechanism on why this stuff works. What is methylene blue? Why you should care? And yeah, I'd love to hear more about the melatonin stuff. That's not something I've played around a whole lot with. So very curious about that. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Imagine having an extra hour in your day. With Carol Bike, it's possible in just 5 minutes. You experience what hours of traditional cardio can't match, thanks to scientifically engineered, AI personalized workouts. It's not about working out longer, it's about working out smarter. Every session is tailored to your fitness level, making it perfect for anyone, regardless of age or ability. Say goodbye to guesswork and hello to precision with workouts that are scientifically proven to boost your health and fitness in 90% less time than regular cardio. Who doesn't want that? Less time working out and still get the amazing benefits? Yes, please. Scientifically proven to reduce the risk of type 2 diabetes by 62%, lower blood pressure by 5% with just 3 short workouts a week. Feel the benefits of Carol Bike for yourself, risk-free for 100 days. And if it's not for you, return it and get a full refund. Carol Bike is more than a time saver, it's a life enhancer. Make sure to go to carolbike.com, that's CAROL bike.com, and use coupon code RHB to receive $100 off. Make sure to take the next step in your healing journey with your Carol Bike.
When you're facing painful symptoms, a diagnosis of chronic Lyme, or an autoimmune disease, it can be overwhelming to navigate. You already know mainstream medicine doesn't have the tools to support you, and often even alternative medicine can become a maze of options without sustained results. Modern living puts significant stress on our systems. To counter this, we need a holistic approach, utilizing the latest technology and guided by physicians with decades of clinical experience. This is biological medicine. The Biomed Center in Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the most comprehensive clinics in the world, incorporating the latest diagnostics available, such as full-body MRIs, computer regulation thermography, heart rate variability, toxin screenings, and along with hormone and gut testing, they achieve the broadest look at all systems of the body. Customized protocols are developed by physicians who have treated thousands of patients in chronic disease by optimizing their biological performance. Save yourself years of suffering and searching with a visit to the Biomed Center, Scottsdale. The future of medicine is here.
Fabulous. Welcome back. So excited to dive in with Dr. John here. So tell us a little bit more about, how did you get going into methylene blue? What is it? Why? All that fun stuff.
Well, I was inspired when I heard a podcast on a fairly obscure podcast that probably a lot of people wouldn't have heard about, but it's called STEM Talk, and it's more kind of geared towards doctors. But they had Frank Gonzalez Lima, and this was like 10 years before anybody really started talking about methylene blue. And then at the time, there was a doctor across the street that was treating their mother. And I remember looking at the IV bag, and it was slightly blue, and it was like a 500 cc bag. So it couldn't have been more than just a few milligrams of methylene blue. And, and they said it didn't really work. They tried it, didn't work. And so I was kind of like, oh, well, I've heard about methylene blue, and then this must be, another maybe 10 years. So this is like 20 years ago that I saw the IV happen, and I kind of dismissed it. And I thought it was really kind of trippy that they were using a dye. But then when I heard Francisco Gonzalez Lima talk about it, I was super interested, but it was still early on, and there was no real direction. There was no, mention about like you couldn't really find it anywhere, right? There was no real direction on where to find it, where to get it, supplements, how to take it, the dosage. It was just this idea of this magic bullet and blah, blah, blah. So when I finally was able to, start getting involved with a little bit more, it really was so fascinating. I wound up writing a book about 3 years ago, the first edition, maybe even 4 years ago. And it was just a small ebook. And then we launched a much larger version of it called Magic Bullet, which I'm now working on the third edition. And so we've been using methylene blue in a lot of really interesting ways that we can talk about, but I keep on having new material that I need to get out, to make the book complete as we expand our knowledge and applications with methylene blue. But it's called the Magic Bullet because back in the late 1800s, Dr. Paul Ehrlich, who won a Nobel Prize, discovered that methylene blue was a cure for malaria. And so he coined the term magic bullet because he couldn't see any negative effect from people taking methylene blue. And, when I consider all of the medications that we have these days and the side effects, side effect profile, like for instance, antibiotics, which when they came on the market, all the doctors switched to and ignored methylene blue. And a lot of times it has to do with marketing dollars and, in order for drug companies to sell expensive products, they have to have a patent on it. And if they have a patent on it, then it inspires them to go on and spend money to advertise and to put these drugs into medical books. And so the doctors learn about it in their education. And so there's so much financial corruption kind of wrapped up into our healthcare model that things that work the best, like, even vitamin C and vitamin D and methylene blue and melatonin and, a lot of these things, ozone, they don't have a patent. And so we don't really hear about them, and they're not utilized in some of the areas. And like, I have this idea to completely make like a holistic hospital, right? It's like, it may never happen, but like, what we're able to do with like a methylene blue infusion with patients when they come in, when they're really sick with like COVID, or if they have different viral infections, it almost seems like a miracle, right? And I think about all these people that, that might be with a stroke, like, or a heart attack. If you can get methylene blue on board right away, it's so neuroprotective. It's almost impossible for you to lose neurons, especially if you're taking it regularly and it's already on board and you have something like that happen. So there's a lot of benefits to it, and it doesn't have the negative, such as like with antibiotics, you're obliterating your microbiome. And so although you might kill the infection, the host or you is left weaker. And so then obviously you can have problems with candida or with a weakened immune system, infections of other types.
Absolutely. So why the different forms and what's, why does the stuff in your eyes work so, work as well as it does? And I notice it's not just methylene blue. You've got a special formula that you came up with, when it comes to that product. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah. So we use some gold in there. In particular, gold really helps with the photo sensitivity of the methylene blue. And then we have a little bit of peppermint, so it has a nice felt effect where it kind of wakes the eyes up. And then we have it with a base of quinton minerals, which are these deep sea minerals that are harvested just off of France. So yeah, there's really a definite felt effect. I like to use the Blue Eyes eye drops before I do sun gazing in the morning. And you know, I prefer to do it like twice a day. So I'll usually do it sometime in the morning when I'm doing breath work and sun gazing. Sometimes I'll do it in my sauna. I put a drop in my contact storage because it's a bit of a sterilizer, so that when I put my contacts in the morning, there's a little bit of methylene blue that's getting into my eyes. Oftentimes I'll apply it actually into my eyes before I put my contacts on. And then at night when I take my contacts out, I'll like to put a drop in. So for anybody that wears contacts, that's kind of the way to do it.
No, nice. And so what are the benefits? Why is it so good for the eyes?
Well, the eyes are one of the major places that we absorb photons. And so methylene blue really works within this whole area of light therapy because it's really absorbing red. So think about it like a red vacuum cleaner, right? So it's reflecting the blue and it's absorbing the red. And the red has a tendency to absorb the deepest into our body. And these are the photons that are most used by our body, is the red and the near infrared. And so the red so when you look at the different wavelengths and the frequencies of the different light, when you get into the really red, which is around 660, that's the best type of light to use with methylene blue. And so what happens is that methylene blue has an affinity to an area of our cell called the mitochondria, which is the powerhouse of the cell. It's where we make all of our energy. And so the methylene blue gets in there and it acts as both an electron donor and an electron acceptor. So it's a pro-oxidant and an antioxidant. So not only can it donate electrons similar to what oxygen can do, but it can actually neutralize that oxidative stress with an antioxidant effect. And so it allows the mitochondria to work at about 30% more efficient and 30% more strength. Now, when you add light into it, those red photons come in and that methylene blue basically just sucks those photons into that transport chain, because we can use both electrons and photons to make energy. So basically we absorb sun and we can use that as an energy source in our body. So ultimately, this is a very powerful antimicrobial combination as well. In fact, blood banks use the combination of a little bit of methylene blue, and then they irradiate the blood bags with red light. And so anybody that's had a blood transfusion has had a little bit of methylene blue.
Fascinating. I didn't realize they were using it in the medical industry anymore, besides for staining and what is it, contrast? You know, they were doing contrast therapies.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what are some of the benefits? And I know like what got me into it was, you know, being a Lyme and some of the co-infections and that type of stuff. So, you know, why is it benefiting that world so well?
Well, ultimately, Lyme is, it's not the only problem, right? It's all the co-infections. It's basically the Lyme bacteria shuts down your immune system, and then, you know, it has that really drastic effect on CD57, right? And that CD57 drops down. We lose that robust immune response. And so then we become infested with a number of different infections. And all of these infections are causing inflammation. And then it's the inflammation that's the problem. And the inflammation shuts down the mitochondria. And that's basically how that whole system works, is that the extreme inflammatory reaction that happens from the endotoxins from the Lyme basically cause what's called a cell danger response. And this cell danger response basically shunts your mitochondrial function. And then that lower mitochondrial function is because your immune cells need mitochondria to make energy. So in order for them to fight the battle and maintain the equilibrium within your body, they have to have energy. And so when you shut down energy throughout all of your cells, your immune cells then can't do what they need to do. And so then you have more infections and then more of a cell danger response. And you have this kind of accumulation of all that. And so at the end of the day, I see these, mold and Lyme as a mitochondrial condition. And so when I think mitochondria, there's the two molecules that I find to be most impactful besides, really you have to have systems and process when you're dealing with the Lyme. There's certain things that are really important. Some of these things I learned from Richie Shoemaker when I studied him, and other things I learned from other practitioners. But things that I agree with Richie Shoemaker with is that definitely you have to address your nasal microbiome. Really important, and we like to do that with glutastat. We have a antimicrobial nasal spray. We like to test people for Marcons. We even have a Marcons A and a Marcons B nasal spray package that we utilize sometimes. And then you have to have your hormones supported, right? And so peptides have been really helpful for people. We do use a lot of Chinese herbs with our patients, a lot of binders, a lot of cell membrane support with phosphatidylcholine and butyrate. But when you get down to I think some of the most impactful parts of the support, I would say methylene blue taken at, between 45 and 90 milligrams a day. And a good healthy source of light therapy, whether it's red light or sauna in combination with that methylene blue. And then higher dose melatonin, and the suppositories absorb the best. Oral melatonin only absorbs about 2.5%. So a higher dose, meaning 200 milligrams or more. And rectally, you have a slower absorption that kind of mimics what you would be pulsing throughout the evening. And the reason that melatonin is so powerful for the mitochondria is that, remember we talked about that cell danger response? Well, that cell danger response is quenched by melatonin. And so every mitochondria makes its own melatonin. And the amount of melatonin is going to dictate how much stress the cell can get, aka how much inflammation from Lyme or mold or whatever that the cell can endure before it shuts down. And so if you give exogenous melatonin, you can actually support that process. And even if the cell has gone into the cell danger response and the mitochondria have shut down, you can actually get them to come back up. And so I look at melatonin as being the ultimate endurance, vitality.
So it sounds like it'd be something awesome for people out there who are doing with MCAS type stuff, right? Getting that nervous system and the cell danger response to kind of calm down a little bit.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Huh.
Well,
Your dispensary.
I can't think of a lot of cases where it wouldn't be beneficial. I mean, we
Right.
all require a lot of melatonin, a lot more than what the scientists and a lot of our leading doctors, because they're fixated on the pineal and the circadian rhythm, but it's literally every cell in the body. In fact, your gut produces 400 times more melatonin than your pineal. And it's part of what causes the microbiome swarming effect, which is at night, you're producing more beneficial flora, and the melatonin taken orally suppresses the negative bacteria in the gut. It's crazy.
That's incredible. Oh geez, where was I going with that? Oh, your dispensary is like nothing I've ever seen before. And I've been playing in this alternative world for quite some time now. And I felt like a kid in a candy store. I was just like, what? Why? I wanted to get everything. It was a little, is a little on the pricey side, but I imagine it's because it works and you've done the research and this stuff is so cutting edge, right? There's got to be a cost for what's that word? Research and development type of stuff. But you just got to have some amazing products on your site. It's just absolutely incredible.
Thank you.
And then so, the high dose melatonin, the methylene blue, if somebody is dealing with a lot of chronic stuff, Have you noticed, can they get better just taking the methylene blue orally, or do you suggest that they do it IV?
Well, so why would you want to do it IV? Because you can put a lot of methylene blue into the blood, right? But it doesn't stay in the blood. It's going to move its way out of the blood fairly quickly within like an hour. But when you have it saturated in the blood and all of the cells within the blood, and then you irradiate that blood with that 660 nanometer red light, which is what we use in what's called Lumistem, which is a intravenous laser application at the clinic. And then we have people go into like a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. And so I think that it's a good leap forward for people. So like when we first start working with people, we might have people come in for an intensive where they'll come in for a week or two and they'll do these procedures because it just creates a much faster, more rapid, kind of antimicrobial and mitochondrial supporting effect. But ultimately, I think most people can get there just doing a home program, taking it orally if they're doing things correctly.
What kind of Herx response can you expect for doing something like this?
Well, it sometimes does Herc. I would say 1 out of 5 people will Herx the first time or two. So it's not as common. When people are taking it orally, it's pretty well tolerated. I think it's a good idea to take binders when you first start taking melatonin, because one of the other things it does is it actually chelates heavy metals out of the brain. So it's a good idea to kind of capture some of those metals with binders when you first start taking the higher dose of melatonin. It may not be a bad idea to do when you start. Now, it's not like you have to take it together, although if you're taking the melatonin rectally with a suppository, and then you're taking the binder orally, that's fine. But I wouldn't take the binder the same time you're taking the methylene blue orally. You can just take it. Binders are good to take before bed, because what the binders are doing is they're going to kind of clean up your bile, and your bile really starts to move at about an hour and a half after you go to bed. So it's a good time to take it right before bed.
Nice. I actually didn't know that. I take it before bed because it's just the easiest around timing, not having to take it around, food and other supplements and type of things. What is that on your chest with the green light? I'm curious.
This?
No, with the green light, the black box with the green light.
Oh, this is my audio recorder. So this is why the sound is
okay.
so clear.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if it was some new biohacking thing I didn't know about. So I was like, "Ooh, what is that?"
Yeah.
You're like, "No, goofy lady." But speaking of biohacking, that's the other reason I fell in love with your work, is because you're also bringing in the breath work, the meditation, the spiritual aspect to healing. Because doctors, especially, God bless them, even the Lyme literate doctors like to focus on treatment, right? Kill, kill, kill. And there's so much more to health and getting healthier and staying healthier than the kill protocols. So can you talk to us a little bit about, how you got into breath work, why, all that part of your practice as well?
Yeah, sure. Well, I started to listen to Wim Hof, and he kind of broke out in the podcast world, quite a while ago now. It seems like yesterday, but I guess it's like over 10, 12, 13 years, 15 years ago now. And I started practicing, but I was doing breath work on my own before I even heard about that, but I did find that it refined my technique a little bit. I was studying with, actually, let me take that back. 30 years ago, I was working with Michael Rice, and Michael Rice discovered and would do these events through Unity Church, and he would take people into these deep, deep states with still point breathing. And so that was my first really deep spiritual experience where I did transformational breath work. And then recently I've been working with Pavel, who is he kind of hosted the party there in Dallas.
I just had him actually on the show. His episode went out last week.
Oh, nice. Okay. Yeah. So you'll want to refer back to that and that's going to be an awesome episode if Pavel's on it.
Yeah.
But so we're doing, instead of cacao ceremony, we're doing activation with methylene blue, with Alumitol blue, and with a product called Lucitol, which really activates autophagy. So it's got like fisetin and sterile and some different plant polyphenols that really help our body clear physical, old, weak, dead and dying cells and tissues. And so we kind of create this situation where we're saying, hey, we're going to support the body to kind of clear the old with the physical, but then we're going to go into this breath work at the same time, and we're going to get rid of the mental, emotional, and address the spiritual that way. So yeah, I think there's a lot of potential with, as we start to use some of these molecules and use some of these substances more intentionally, with intention, with things like breath work. I think we're going to see some really interesting things start to occur.
It's absolutely incredible. I try to hit people over the head in a nice way. When it comes to healing, that the first thing that we really need to work on is the nervous system and getting you out of that fight or flight, right? Otherwise, all these other beautiful modalities just don't work as well as they should. And, I've done a lot of plant, therapies to kind of help move through old childhood trauma. And I'm still just blown away at how powerful breath work is. And I used to be such a little smart ass back in the day, breath work, I breathe every day, if it worked, why am I not better? I don't understand you damn hippies and your breath work, until I actually, started really doing breath work, and then finding out actually in my human design and things that aren't connected. And the only way they get connected is when I do like breath of fire and some deeper stuff to actually start really feeling my emotions. Total complete game changer. Like even that night, with the meditation, the breath work, stuff came up that evening. It was like being on a psychedelic experience without having, the psychedelic hangover.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Yeah. And
Am I
Pavel,
boring you?
and Pavel's such a master, because he's just, I don't know if it's because he's done it like 500 times or he's just that good, but it's like he's just seamless when he takes you through all the different intentions and the visualizations and the breaths. And yeah, it's just, I like to think about him like the Tony Robbins of breath work, transformational breath work.
How did you guys get hooked up?
It was the year before in Orlando at the biohacking conference, and I actually met his wife first, Ferry, and Ferry and I really hit off. And she's like, "Oh my God, you and Pavel are gonna really hit it off. I can't wait." So he was actually doing the breathwork event, and I was kind of roaming around outside. I missed it, but then afterwards we connected, and we've been great buddies ever since. In fact, we were just in Europe together, and we did an event at a biohacking summit in Helsinki, Finland.
That was incredible. Oh my
yeah,
goodness. I can't even.
Yeah. Well, this event in Finland, I think they're going to have it in Amsterdam next summer, and they're doing something in Japan in a couple of months. I'm not going to be able to make, but boy, they really do a good job. I would recommend getting out there. And Tamu is the gentleman that kind of runs it, but it's very much blending the mental, emotional, spiritual. I think more so than Dave Asprey's event. Like they really had a big emphasis on, I think, the spiritual part component. So my belief is this, that there's 3 pillars. So my entire clinic, I would even say like Mitozen and the supplements that we produce, if you call them supplements, I always like to say it's where science meets soul, right? But it's the idea that there's 3 pillars, which is the vitality of the body and how important it is to have a strong physical body and clean physical body, and what that translates into how we can navigate this world and how we can contribute and be more spiritual. And then this idea of what are we identifying with? So it's vitality, identity, and divinity. But within identity, it's like oftentimes we make the mistake with identifying with our physical body, with the things that we've done, the accomplishments that we've made, And it's this illusion that we are this temporary, physical situation, and that people connecting with the true self is really, I think, one of the ultimate acts of spiritual evolution, is that knowing and that deeper connection with the true self. And then a direct experience with God, which for me was with plant medicine. And so we're using different medicines in the clinic, primarily ketamine, and, doing our best to put together these 3 pillars for our patients. And I honestly, the more I do this and the more I see the results, I think that this is going to be really the blueprint for how the future medical paradigm really needs to be set.
Can I get an amen?
Can I get an amen? Yes.
I'm
Amen.
down. Things need to change big time. There's way too many people suffering needlessly, falling through the cracks, and it's got to change. And that's why I do what I do. It's why I have the guests on that I have, talking about the more, out there alternative things that are still in the dark, because they need to be brought into the light, because that's the only way people are going to get hope, and it's the only way people are going to heal. So thank you for doing the work that you do, because I know you're kind of putting your neck out there, with some of the stuff that you do. And, when I have to admit, like when I first started watching you, I was like, what the hell is this dude doing? And then I was like, oh, okay. And then now I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, I'm a believer. So you'll be able to find his links on the show notes. I've got affiliate codes and all that fun stuff for you. But do you have any last little nuggets you want to leave us with before we go?
Well, yes. So if anybody really wants to take some deep dives into some of the protocols that we're doing, probably by the time, I don't know when this episode's coming out, but we have an event August 23rd in Sarasota. It's called Red Blue O2, and it's all things with oxygen therapy, methylene blue, and different types of light therapy and photobiomodulation. We actually have Morley Robinson coming in, which he's kind of like the big copper guy, because you need copper in order to utilize these photons within this whole system that we talked about. We've got Dr. David Minkoff, which is not too far away. He's on a lot of podcasts. He's the guy that really pioneered the essential amino acids, which he was working with Lance Armstrong. And so we talk about the building blocks for regenerating. We have Brian Richards from Sauna Space, Jason Saunders, which is an expert, has his PhD in hyperbaric oxygen. So we have these experts, but probably for, people listening to this podcast, they might miss that, but we're going to have.
I'll go ahead and I'll put you above the stack. So I'll get you out within the first 2 weeks of August to make sure that this goes out in time.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And so we're going to live stream it, but we're also going to record it, and it's going to be free to members at mitozen.club as well. And we have our women's summit. We did Elements of Vitality with Ben Greenfield and Luke Story. We have a Psychedelics 2.0 event that we did. All of that is basically free content for members, because most of our products are not sold to the public. And so, which is a little bit strange. So when you log on to mitozen.club, you have to pay a lifetime $10 membership fee, and then you get to shop, and then you get to explore some of my favorite different products, the Mitozen products, and then what's called the Mitobrary, which has all of this great content.
That's incredible. I'm super excited to dive in and learn more about what it is that you're up to. And hopefully I can go in August, because I'm trying to think. I love Sarasota, and I haven't seen the ocean yet this year, which is criminal for me. So I'm like, I wonder. I need to make it down.
Oh my God, it's going to be life-changing.
I need to make it down there. All right. Yeah. Everybody else, make sure that if you heard one thing that kind of sparked some interest, sparked some curiosity, gave you a little bit of hope, make sure to subscribe, share, because that is how we pass this information along to others in the world. And, the same tide raises all ships. Thank you for joining us. Have a healthy day. Stay tuned.
Okay. Thanks, Heather.
And as always, if you were inspired by anything that you heard on today's show, make sure that you share, and subscribe. That's the only way that we help change people's lives and get this information out into the world, so that change can begin one person at a time, the way that it did with me and changed my life so many years ago. Make sure too, right, if you really want to start changing your life, it starts with your diet. It starts with what's on the end of your fork. And if you want to start making changes, go to my website, www.renegadehealthboss, RENEGADE, health, HEALTHBOSS.com, and download your free ebook, your free cooking guide, Real Cooking to Real Life. And in there, you'll also find links to the videos. Don't just learn what to eat, but why, right? Don't just learn how to cook, but the reasonings behind why I use some of the tools that I do, the toxins. You've got to lower your toxic burden, and we can do that in the kitchen and with what you eat. So make sure that you pick up that free resource. It's amazing. And while we're at it, we got to do a little disclaimer. Anything that you hear on this show is for entertainment value only. You cannot hold Heather Gray, the Lyme boss, Discovering Health LLC, or Renegade Health Boss liable for any damages that may have occurred while you have tried something that you've heard on the show. This show also contains affiliate sponsorship and paid advertising, just a heads up. But to also know that no advertising gets on here without my approval first. It's usually products that I have tried and have my stamp of approval on it. So never fear when it comes to that. But yes, cannot hold me liable. Do not, this is for educational purposes only. Please make sure that you talk to your doctor before making any medical changes. And God bless. Stay tuned.